In story writing, there's a really famous concept known as the bomb under the table. The idea is that if you were watching a scene of some people eating dinner at a kitchen table and a bomb went off all of a sudden, you would be shocked and surprised. But if you as the audience were shown the bomb beforehand and left the characters at the table unaware of its existence, you would introduce an element of suspense to the story. So the trade-off for the shocking moment of the explosion is all the tension that builds up leading to that final explosion. The audience knows something crazy is coming, they just don't know when. On a completely unrelated note, I have to give a content warning for this video for discussions of and imagery related to 9/11. Folks, it's time for me to take another needlessly critical look at a creepypasta. This time I'm going to be going through Appy. Now, something that's kind of special about this video is that at the time of writing the script, I had not read through this story at all. I just read like the first 5% of it. So what you're hearing will be my thoughts as I experience this for the first time. I'll be seeing what could be improved and just generally giving some critiques along the way. This is already looking like it's going to be a longer video. I don't know if I'm really prepared to read this entire Appy saga and comment on it all. This might be a huge mistake, but you know what isn't a mistake? Subscribing to my channel. That's right, I used to work in marketing. I know to put together a 10 out of 10 call to action. But seriously, I make videos on internet horror and horror literature, and I typically put out a video every 4 to 5 days because I have no life, so subscribe if you haven't yet. Like my other literary analysis videos, I will be going through this, reading it all out, and commenting along the way. I do want to say that I'm pretty sure the person that wrote this didn't speak English as their first language. I'm not sure whether this was originally in English or if it's been translated. So just know that when I talk about some formatting or grammar or word choice that might be strange, I totally understand that that's not really the author's fault at all, but I also don't think it's helpful to completely ignore those mistakes because I know I have a lot of viewers who are aspiring horror authors themselves and some that don't speak English natively. I remember when I lived in Mexico and was learning Spanish, most people were so incredibly polite about my crappy Güero Spanish to the point that I had to start asking people around me to correct me more. Because the reality is that every language has aspects of it that are hard to truly understand if you don't speak them natively. You just have to kind of feel it out. Like, did you know that buffalo is a completely valid and grammatically correct sentence? I still don't really understand that. I remember trying to learn the subjunctive tense when I took French in high school and I couldn't understand it at all, and it took like actually living in Mexico to finally understand the subjunctive tense in Spanish. This is getting really long-winded, but all of this to say that I truly have the utmost respect for anyone who even tries to write a story, and even more respect if they're doing it in a language that isn't their native one. But enough stalling, it's time for me to read through and analyze Appy. Why am I doing this to myself? February 23rd, 2011. Hello, I will be writing on this blog because I'm researching a show called Appy. One of the main reasons why I'm researching this show is because I've been fascinated with missing TV shows, episodes, and movies. This is written exactly like how I would have written the opening lines to a 5-paragraph research essay that I had to do back in like middle school. It's uncanny. Like most people who research missing episodes, I'm hell-bent on finding London After Midnight, the 108 missing Doctor Who episodes, and Him, the 1974 film where a man has a sexual obsession with Jesus. I totally get this fascination with lost media. There are just some things that everyone is really interested in. For instance, I'm a total Sonic the Hedgehog fan, much like everyone else. Also, of all the 3 things he listed, the only one I've heard about is the last one, so I don't know what that says about me as a person. Even though I should help to search for any fragment of the missing episodes and films, I'm going to research this one series for now. Another reason I want to research this show is because I had an experience with it around 2001. It was around 8 in the morning. My younger brother, who was 7, was watching a local station during its child TV show block. After a dubbed over Blue's Clues, it started to air a show called, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, or Happy Apple. I can barely remember the episode's plot, but it was about this apple who was trying to help a kid named Nathaniel. Unnecessary comma there. It's not like a huge deal and might even be technically valid, but it breaks up the flow of the sentence in a way that doesn't add anything. Sometimes breaking up the flow of a sentence can be really useful, especially in horror writing. It's a good way to kind of disorient the reader and confuse them in a way that puts them in the mindset of the main character. I made a video on The Corn Maiden by Joyce Carol Oates, which is an amazing cult horror story about a mom whose daughter goes missing, and the author uses a lot of these disorienting tactics to great effect. So again, you can use weird pauses and commas like this. You just have to be very intentional about it, which it doesn't seem like the story is. It felt sort of low budget, but since my brother liked the episode, I didn't mind him watching it. The only thing that made me dubious was this evil smile that the apple did in the middle of the episode. We love ourselves an evil smile on this channel. You ever notice that the only thing that really differentiates a normal smile from an evil one is the angle of your head? Like, take a look at this. Sorry if you can hear some noise in the background. I live next to a street and somebody must have taken the muffler off their 2003 Honda Civic. I wish I was that cool. From what I gathered, in the first weeks of Noggin's existence, this Happy Appy show began production. Its plot was about a giant clay apple with arms, baby blue eyes, and large dark green lips being held up by a bent, rusty stick. He would go around in a white 1996 Ford Windstar helping children when they got injured. I love that the show made sure to give us the make and model of the car. Also, being known as the guy who was always there when a child is hurt probably isn't great for your reputation. As the show kept going, the episodes started to become more unusual. For one example, Happy Appy would often stare at the viewers of the show with a deranged smile. I don't want to be that guy, but you already gave us this example. It's the only example you've given so far of the creepy apple. You don't need to repeat yourself. The trope of the creepy smile is one that's so interesting to me because I feel like it should be rooted in like classic horror literature, but I can't think of many notable examples of it off the top of my head. The only one that comes to mind to me is Rictus from The Thief of Always, but that's a little bit of a deep cut and the smile itself isn't really creepy per se. There are just so many creepypastas obsessed with this trope of creepy smiles, like Jeff the Killer, Laughing Jack, Mr. Widemouth, and Smile Dog. It's just strange how it caught on so well. I guess it could also have something to do with the Heath Ledger interpretation of the Joker, which was like really popular at the time, so maybe that's why all this smiling media caught on. It's also worth mentioning that the series slowly got more violent as the series progressed. Okay, sweet, let's hear some examples of the show getting more violent. You've got me sat. I want to hear some messed up apple stories. Happy Appy was one of the shorter shows on Noggin, with every episode being 10 minutes long at the most. They played in duets, making each full episode 20 minutes long, minus commercials. A couple months after Happy Appy aired its first episode, Nickelodeon canceled the show, and it was never shown again on Noggin or Nick Jr. Even the much more appropriate episodes weren't shown for whatever reason. However, some parents did record the show, but they were VHS copies. So are we just not going to get the descriptions of the creepier episodes? I feel like I was kind of led on. My disappointment is immeasurable. My day is ruined. I fully understand that we will come back to these disturbing episodes, but the way that sentence is written really makes it feel like it should lead into a description of one of those episodes. Building horror in a story is tricky because you can't really put the genie back in the bottle once it's out. If you start with a big scare only to backpedal, it can be a little anticlimactic. I personally feel that a lot of horror introduces its horror elements too quickly and gets the audience too familiar with the scares in the story to the point that it loses its punch. Now, obviously, most stories will start with a scare before bringing the tension back down and slowly ratcheting it back up, but you have to kind of commit to one direction or the other. I actually really respect internet horror stories that take their time with their scares because so many creepypastas feel like any percent speedruns of horror stories. Of those said VHS copies, only a few survived through the years. Many of the tapes have been destroyed either due to neglect or disgust, or simply misplaced and thrown out by accident. However, some copies of the show were reportedly stolen by a shadowy figure. Love the idea that we're learning about an unknown lost media TV series that no one else seems interested in digging into that has a shadowy man stealing VHS tapes. Imagine if you had like the Panty Raid episode of SpongeBob that they don't air or put on streaming anymore on your hard drive, and a shadowy man snuck in and stole it from you. That would pretty much be a 4D experience since you'd be experiencing your very own kind of Panty Raid in real life, but as a victim this time around. I was one of the lucky people to own a copy of the episodes. Yesterday, when I did some winter cleaning, I found an old DVD with HA episodes written on it. I had a feeling that I knew this abbreviation from somewhere. I did some research on what the HA meant. My first choice was the forum about missing episodes or films that I normally go to. When I entered the missing episodes section of the forum, the first thread I saw was one named HA, what's this? A woman posted the thread who had, like me, found a VHS with the initials HA on it. As I read the thread more, I found out that the initials on the disc stood for Happy Appy. This instantly reminded me of the weird low-budget show that I had watched with my brother in 2000. In the replies, the users claimed that there are no known DVD copies around. I'm not sure how the disc got there though. I certainly don't remember owning a disc that looked like it. After viewing the thread, I went ahead and put it into the disc drive, hoping that it would work. Thankfully, the disc did work and instantly cut to the intros of the episode. No menus or anything. The Happy Appy's intro song had the same tune as Mary Had a Little Lamb and went something like this. Now, some of you might know that I'm somewhat of a musician. I like to write some music from time to time. There's even a little tune of mine at the end of each of my videos. So I figured that I'd treat you guys to my rendition of the Happy Appy theme song. Just know that I'm playing it exactly as it's written. It really is this long for some reason. Okay, I need to apologize in advance because I didn't want to put my birds to bed when I recorded this, and they're very loud and screechy. So that's what that noise is in the background, and the bird on my shoulder is Charlie. Sorry for all the noises.
Happy, 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 he helps kids all day. Happy, 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 he helps
My personal gripe with the Happy Appy theme song is that it really feels like there should be another syllable in the "he helps kids all day" line. Episode 1 and 2 were called Happy's Vacation and Hurt Happy respectively. Happy's Vacation was exactly what you'd expect. Happy Appy goes on a vacation to the beach, heals injured kids, and even talks down a bully into not hurting a child. Happy Appy being some sort of mystic figure that heals kids is so funny to me. I assumed that he was just like giving kids band-aids or something, but I guess he's some sort of mystical healer as well. Hurt Happy was about Happy's stick getting broken, and the kids teaming up to help Happy Appy by giving him bandages and fruit. Nothing seemed out of place when I first saw it, but when I saw it the second time, the episodes looked questionably odd. Questionably odd is a strange pairing. I figure that most things that are odd would be questionable by default. When Happy was driving his van to the beach in Happy's Vacation, a few seconds skipped. At first I ignored it, saying that it could be a scratched DVD. But when I checked the disc, it had no scratches on it whatsoever. Also, during the fruit scene in Hurt Happy, the kids gave him an apple for whatever reason. It could have been a mistake by the producers though. Please, please, please tell me that this line here is implying that the kids giving Happy Appy an apple is essentially them encouraging apple cannibalism. I need that in my life. It's like whenever I'm eating chicken nuggets at home and I look over at my birds really awkwardly. I think they know that I'm eating another bird. I can see it in their little bird eyes. Although, in my defense, chicken nuggets are so processed that they're probably like 65% microplastics at this point, so I should really be feeling bad for like my computer mouse or something. Finally, I noticed some things in Hurt Happy that looked out of place. In Happy's van during the intro of Happy's Vacation, there was what looked like the border of a Hope poster, but it was so out of frame that it could have been something else. Wait, Happy Appy has an Obama Hope poster? That's where we're going with this? How have I already covered 2 stories with out-of-place Obama references? At the end of Hurt Happy, there was a news broadcast about a 9.0 earthquake that recently struck Japan. Happy responded, "Oh no, if you want to help the Japanese, call this number," and a 1-800 number appeared. I thought those were just coincidental. Is this like predictive programming, or is the spirit of Happy Appy reaching through time and space to hawk Obama campaign merch and fundraise for international charity organizations? Also, I know that some of you are chomping at the bit to tell me that what I'm doing is not a literary analysis, so let's make a solid literary connection here. Last year I read Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, which is a historical fiction book that includes real groups like the Glanton Gang. It's a pretty good, if not insanely brutal book. But typically historical fiction will take place in a time period that the author is pretty far removed from, but Happy Appy is tackling modern events, which is a very tricky thing to do. This would be like if I wrote a story about a party planner who was really bad at his job and died at an event that he was working at and then became a ghost that possessed Billy McFarland and orchestrated the disaster that was the Fire Festival. Actually, that might be kind of a cool idea for a story, so feel free to use that in your own writing. Just make sure to name the terrible party planner after me. Honestly, I don't even know if I need these literary references in here because I don't know if I'm going to call this video a literary analysis. That'll be for future Davis to decide. Well, I was wrong. Episodes 3 and 4 were stranger. The intros of these 2 episodes were removed, but I found out that episode 4's name was Nate Needs Help. This struck out to me because this was the very same episode I saw with my brother, but in English. Episodes 3 and 4 were missing a few scenes, and overall more disturbing than the first 2. On episode 3, near the 5 minutes and 10 seconds mark, is when Happy Appy does his first evil smile for 25 seconds. Our protagonist appears to have the same unfailing internal clock that Tom from Sonic.exe had. They should get together with George Michael Bluth and become the Timekeeping Avengers. A scene that could send chills down anyone's spine was the boo-boo part in Nate Needs Help. Happy aids Nate, who has a bruise on his knee. He looks to the camera, giving off the same evil smile that I remember from 2000, and says, "What does Nate need for this boo-boo?" For 30 seconds, he stared at the camera, motionless, with his soulless baby blue eyes locking onto anyone watching. Finally, he broke the silence by saying, "That's right, a bandage." Why did he need that long to speak? I will never know. Hey, maybe Happy Appy just has a hard time finding the right words before he opens his mouth. Maybe he's just so far beyond you and me that he needs to carefully plan what he's going to say. Maybe we could all stand to be a little more like Happy Appy and do a good 20 to 30 seconds of thinking before we say something. Don't forget the menacing smile, because that is also essential. Could you imagine if your friend asked you, like, "Hey, do you want to get Italian or Chinese food tonight?" and you hit them with the Chinese food? Also, the out-of-place objects were getting more noticeable. In Nate Needs Help, the radio plays what sounds like a country cover of Hot and Cold, which was made in 2008 and very out of place for a kid's show. Our narrator is not nearly as perplexed by Happy Appy reaching through the void of time as he should be. This is absolutely wild to me. Also, you could say that a country cover of Katy Perry's Hot and Cold also feels out of place in a story that's supposed to be scaring me. February 24th, 2011. I watched episode 5, which had a few differences from the first 4 episodes. Firstly, it had Happy on a rustless but still bent stick. Secondly, this episode was somewhat disturbing. The theme song played, and the name of the episode is revealed as Monkey Bar Mishap, bringing back unpleasant memories of the time I cracked my head open at the park after slipping off the monkey bars. Maybe this is getting scary. It started with Happy Appy in his van driving to the playground when he sees a kid crying near some monkey bars. Once he parks the van and goes to the monkey bars, Happy finds out that the kid had fallen off of them, cracking his head open. The kid was named Davis Morgan. I'm just messing with you guys. It would be wild if the story was actually calling out to me though. Then it would maybe actually be a little scary. Once he parks the van and goes to the monkey bars, Happy finds out that the kid had fallen off of them, cutting his little finger open. Happy Appy said, "What does Jake need to heal with, kids?" He gave off his evil smile at the screen for a couple minutes, enough time to read a page of a book, preferably the Bible, to him. What? This might be the first time I've actually been kind of speechless when reading one of these stories. I truly don't know how I'm supposed to respond to this. Did I miss something? Is Happy Appy supposed to be like a devout Christian or something? Is this something that the author just intuits? I have so many questions. I love how it's only preferably the Bible. It really gives the viewer some freedom on what to read to the kid. I don't have a Bible on me, so I'll substitute it with Tender as the Flesh by Agostina Bastarrica. Like Nate needs help, his soulless baby blue eyes watched over anyone in the room like Big Brother. He said, "That's right," and Happy puts a bandage on Jake's finger. After getting hugged by Jake, Happy drives away in his van. It skipped to episode 6, which had a better chance of being aired on Wonder Chosen than Nick Jr. In the episode called Never Run with Knives, a kid was running with a knife facing up. The knife was clearly a rubber prop because the blade was flopping around a lot. The kid got cut and held his hand over the wound, crying. As blood began to come out of the kid's wound, Happy parked his van, gave a normal smile, and said, "Hey kids, he shouldn't have carried the knife facing up while running." I cannot express how funny it is to me that Happy Appy has to park his Ford Windstar minivan in every episode before helping a kid. It's such a weird detail. However, he did heal him by putting a bandage over the wound. The kid hugged Happy, and he said, "Remember kids, never run with knives facing up, or scissors for that matter. Always walk with knives and scissors facing down." I think there was something either lost in the translation of this, or it was just written strangely to begin with. I think Happy Appy's original "he shouldn't have carried the knife facing up while running" comment is supposed to be more sinister. I could be wrong, but the tone of this reads like Happy Appy is saying the kid deserved it, but it's kind of hard to tell. The reason I think this might be the case is that it's followed up with, "However, he did heal him by putting a bandage over the wound." I've noticed in previous stories that some people have a hard time understanding when to use the word "however." Some people just treat it like a normal sentence break, like a comma. But typically, "however," when used on its own, refers to something that has changed or is different from what the reader was expecting to happen. It's hard to explain, which is why I think it's used incorrectly pretty often, but it's just one of those things you can only learn by just reading a whole ton and seeing the proper usage of the word. Happy took the kid to his van, drives off, and the credits played. However, after the credits roll, the episode takes a very disturbing turn when Happy comes back in his van, the kid missing, and says, "Hey kids, if you find me in my van, just talk to me and I'll take you away. Ha ha." You know you're reading a creepypasta by the complete absence of subtlety. Heaven forbid we have to put together on our own that Happy Appy kidnapped the child. It's real. I know writers that use subtext and they're all cowards energy. Episode 7 began with Happy on the playground, but he wasn't playing with the kids or helping them. He was just staring at them with that unsettling smile I hate so much. It's here that we get a picture of the Happy Appy death smile. Now, I'm going to put this picture on the screen and I want you to tell me if this really screams death smile. Maybe it's just me, but this just looks like a normal smile. He's not even tilting his head down. This is one of those cases where just letting the reader imagine what the creepy smile looks like is better than trying to show us, because this apple isn't scary at all. The only thing that Happy Appy could scare away would be a doctor, but an apple a day keeps them away regardless of any menacing smile, so I wouldn't say it's unique to him. A group of kids are playing with jump ropes when Happy walks over to them. He calmly tells them something, but I could barely hear what he said. From what I heard, I could only make out, "Hello, Happy. How, me, please." I could see where this was going, as the kids walk with Happy into the bushes of the playground. Loud, violent screams are heard for almost a minute and a half, until Happy begins to drag 3 bloody bodies to his van. I couldn't believe it. A lack of subtlety and child murder? This story is really hitting all of those classic creepypasta tropes. One thing about this story that confuses me and takes me out of it is the fact that Happy Appy is like this weird clay apple on a stick, and not just a guy in a costume. I'm not sure whether we're supposed to be envisioning this as the apple talking to live action kids and killing them, or if it's like all animated. There's another creepypasta called 1999 that I think is pretty good and has a very similar premise with kind of this low-budget creepy children's show with a violent mascot. But in that story, the show is live action and the mascot is very clearly a guy in a bear costume, so it's believable that he's killing these kids because he's a human being. But Happy Appy is just this little puppet thing, so I don't know whether we're supposed to believe that he's like an actual sentient being killing kids, or if there's a human behind the scenes pulling the strings. For the rest of the episode, he does that damn death smile. Why did they use that look so much? It was almost like he could climb out of your TV, grab you, and murder you slowly and painfully with a rusty knife, but he couldn't. And I thought I had a morbid imagination. Why does the knife have to be rusty? Also, and this is a small thing considering the overall quality and direction of the story so far, but specifying that Happy Appy couldn't do those things kind of kills some of the tension. For some reason, old creepypastas were obsessed with presenting you with a creepy villain that is immediately thwarted or made irrelevant or weak somehow. The first thing that happens in Jeff the Killer is essentially Jeff losing a fight to a 10-year-old boy. I moved on to episode 8 and 9. This time, the episodes were so violent and shoddy that they couldn't have aired on Noggin at all, as opposed to the implied child murder of the last episode, which probably could have aired on Noggin. Episode 8 had Happy Appy take a kid into his van. For half the episode, flesh cutting could be heard, and so could loud screaming, which turned into gurgles. As the scene progressed, blood spatters on the windows began to appear. Eventually, Happy emerged from the van and did a death smile until the end of the show. Like episode 8, episode 9 was gory and violent, but this episode was so coincidental and violent that I couldn't believe Noggin would even allow it, unless it was some sort of hijacking. We're starting to hit diminishing returns on child death already. Obviously, the idea of a kid being killed is absolutely horrifying, but it's not this horror cheat code that a lot of people seem to think it is. Something that I've learned from reading a lot of horror novels is that it's rarely the substance of a horror book that makes it disturbing, it's all in the execution. Take two books that I've read recently, Mr. Be Gone by Clive Barker and Misery by Stephen King. Mr. Be Gone is about a demon who was ripped out of hell, and the book is way more violent than Misery. There are brutal killings, and people being burnt alive, and babies being slaughtered. But the way that Barker writes it makes it seem not that bad, all things considered, and that's exactly what he's going for. He wants you to see this kind of as mundanely as a demon would. Misery has a couple moments of violence that are objectively more tame than Mr. Be Gone, but the descriptions and buildup had me squirming in my seat when I read it. All this to say that you can't just imply that a child was murdered in your horror story and call it a day. You have to actually build an atmosphere and put some work into those disturbing elements. It starts out with Happy Appy walking around the playground when two kids ask him what the cycle of life is so they could complete their homework. He proceeds to tell the kids about the cycle of life in frogs and plants. The kids said, "Thanks, Happy. Can you play with us for a bit?" Happy agrees, and they start playing on the playground. When this happens, smoke starts to creep behind Happy and the children. It gets to a point where they start coughing because of how dense the smoke is, so they turn around to see what was making the smoke. Happy gasps at the sight in front of them. I'm telling you right now, nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to read the first time I went through this. My jaw was on the floor. 2 towers were on fire and were burning up. A few people are falling out of windows to escape the fire. There was a lot of screaming, falling debris, and a crashed airplane in one of the towers. Only the tail of the plane was visible, which was nearing the point of collapse. I could hear a faint whining noise at this point, and I think it was the plane's engine, which was probably still on. 7 seconds later, the tail of the plane finally broke apart, with the largest piece of the tail hitting and killing someone. During this scene, fire trucks could be heard trying to douse out the flames, but it only slows the flames down. The wailing of ambulances could also be heard, taking away the bodies of the people who jumped from the towers. It showed a weird guy on fire falling out of one of the towers, screaming. What are we even doing here, guys? When I'm doing my monetization rating for this video, I'm going to have to check the video contains discussion of sensitive or tragic events box. And all of this because for some insane reason, the author decided that putting 9/11 into their children's show creepypasta fanfiction was somehow a good idea. This story was written in 2011, which means unless the author was 12 years old, which actually might not be that crazy, they probably lived through and remember 9/11. The absolute gall that you have to possess to put that into your creepypasta is borderline impressive. I cannot believe that this is the direction that they've decided to go with this. I like to imagine they kept thinking of little hints that could show that Happy Appy was predicting the future, so they included the Katy Perry song and the Japan earthquakes, and then they always had 9/11 in their back pocket as a last resort, but they completely ran out of ideas after only 2 of the hints, so they just had to go full throttle with it. It's also wild that it says that Happy Appy gasps at the sight of the 2 towers. At least it's not implying that he somehow caused this, but it's funny it catches him off guard as well. Could you imagine if Happy Appy was like, "Mission successful, I have to go report this to my boss." George Bush. I honestly wouldn't put it past this story at this point. Happy and the kids are seen again, but this time they stood still in fear. The smoke kept getting thicker and thicker, slowly obscuring the trees and equipment of the playground. The debris from the towers fell around the kids and Happy, and a person ran up to them and told them to run away from the towers before running off. When the older kid worriedly said, "Happy, Appy, why are the towers on fire?" it cuts to a higher up floor that was near where the plane crashed, which revealed a kid that was under a huge piece of concrete, crying for help. Some other kids tried to help him by lifting the piece of concrete off him. He was screaming so loud, it was almost heartbreaking. Almost heartbreaking? You're telling me that Happy Appy's incredibly mild, evil smile will haunt you for the rest of your days, but footage of 9/11 is almost heartbreaking? What? There were bodies and blood everywhere, and the pain and fear on the trapped kid's face was so realistic, I cringed. After the shot with the kid trapped under the concrete, the younger kid turns to the side, say, "Happy Appy, why are people running around and falling from the towers?" Happy Appy turns to the camera, death smile on his face, and very coldly said 3 words. Those 3 words will haunt me as long as I research this show. That's natural, children. If the first video to get demonetized on my channel is due to Happy Appy, I will lose my mind. Why would you write this? I need answers. I'm so lost and confused. He took the 2 kids away from the towers, leaving the kids stuck under concrete screaming for help. When the credits rolled, the audio of the scene kept playing, and at the end, before the video cuts out, something collapsed, making a very loud noise that could scare anyone watching. I jumped out of my seat. Was Happy a deathbringer in the form of an apple, or was he a master predictor? I love when these stories drop lines like deathbringer in the form of an apple, as if we all just intuitively understand it like it's a common term. It's got the same energy as a beast version of our mascot or a thing of bleach. You love to see it. If that episode somehow predicted 9/11, I have to watch episodes 10 and 11 to see if there was anything else predicted. I might not see any predictions though, and honestly, I hope not. Oh, and you want to know what happens when someone calls the Tsunami Aid phone number? Tomorrow I'm going to go and call it. I just have to comment on the sheer length of Happy Appy. That did not come out right. What I'm trying to say is that this creepypasta is massive. This unfortunately means that I won't be able to cover all of it in this one video. I'll have to make it its own series. That is legitimately kind of impressive to me. The person that wrote this dedicated so much time to this story that went off the rails before it could even get on the rails in the first place. I've been thinking a lot about this kind of artistry, if that makes sense. I was reminded of it when I rewatched PowerPack's video on myhouse.wad, which is a massive project that probably took a ton of time and effort to create. And then the creator of this whole thing just dumped the ROM online and presumably didn't make any money from it beyond maybe some donations or something. That's really admirable to me. I like to think that I'm pretty good at putting out videos consistently, and these videos take a lot of effort to write, record, and edit, but also this is my job and I get paid to make these. All this to say that this author writing this super long creepypasta and expecting no compensation from it is very impressive, regardless of the quality of the story itself. February 25th, 2011. Hey, I called the 1-800 hotline mentioned on episode 3. It was a pre-recording, which I will transcribe for you. Hello, my name is Happy Appy. I'm every kid's most helpful and favorite apple. If you want to make a donation, press 1. If you want to know about the earthquake, press 2. When I pressed 2, the hotline said this. An earthquake and tsunami has recently hit Japan and we need all the help we can get. If you can make a donation of $1, $2, $5, $10, $20, $50, or $100, you will be a big help. Anyone who donates gets a Happy Appy badge. So I went ahead and donated $1 to the foundation for the fun of it by using an outdated bank account that I never used. It responded. Sorry, I'm just laughing at the fact that the author donates a single $1, but makes sure to use like an outdated bank account so like the transaction doesn't actually go through, like they can't spare the $1. But anyways, it responded, "Thank you for helping with the aid for the tsunami. Look in your mailbox in a week from now because you'll get your Happy Appy badge." I'm wondering what earthquake Happy predicted. Between 1999 and the current day, there were no 9.0 earthquakes in Japan. Since the 2003 Hokkaido earthquake was pretty close to when the episode was released, as well as the magnitude mentioned in the radio broadcast, I guess he was predicting about that. I was definitely expecting there to be something really creepy about this call, but there really isn't. Our evil child murderer is just reaching through time to raise funds for disaster relief. Interesting. I've talked before about narratives introducing an impossibility in writing and how that can be used to great effect. Take one of my favorite examples of this, House of Leaves. House of Leaves is one of my favorite books and is something that I definitely want to talk about someday. It's a book that is full of contradictions and impossibilities. The book starts with a man looting the house of his friend's recently deceased landlord, where he finds a manuscript that the landlord wrote before he died. The manuscript is an analysis of a movie about a house, The issue is that the movie does not exist, and the landlord was blind and had been for decades leading up to his death. So there was no way for him to have seen this movie in the first place, and the movie is a documentary about a man who moves into a new house with his wife and 2 kids. Things start to go wrong when he discovers that his house is a 1/4 of an inch bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, and this impossibility grows into a paranoid obsession. All things considered, your house being a 1/4 of an inch bigger on the inside isn't really impacting your daily life all that much. It's probably something you'd never really notice and would probably just increase your property value. But just this tiny piece of impossible knowledge is enough to completely tear down everything that we know about the world and how it works. So I really love impossibility and horror. I think it can be a subtle way to introduce a creeping sense of dread, but Appy just doesn't know how to use it properly. The narrator isn't nearly as freaked out by this as he should be, or at least he isn't showing it. If he isn't going to be scared, then we need to know his rationalization for this. If he can think of a logical explanation, then I'll buy how calm he is, but for now, this information should be shaking him to his very core. His apple core. February 27th, 2011. Episode 10 was corrupt, to say the least. It started up but had no audio, and the first part was so badly compressed that it was hardly viewable. The next part was just plain static for the rest of the video. Great, a missing episode, I thought. Okay, now we're building some mystery and some intrigue. You love to see it. I'm hoping we get some sort of answer for how Appy knows all these future events. Episode 11, called Happy's Trick, was actually watchable. The intro was just some weird offbeat carnival music, with Appy doing his death smile at the camera. The episode began with him in his van, driving on a winding road. As the episode went on, scars started to appear on his body. Eventually, Appy reached the playground, where many children were at play. He jumped out, looking like he was ready to abduct all of them, and said, "Hey kids, who wants to see Appy do a magic trick?" Like brainwashed zombies, the kids cheered and ran into his van. Appy closes the door and drives away from the playground. After a few minutes, the van came back and the side door opened, revealing a motionless and expressionless Appy covered in blood. I couldn't take it anymore. Appy was making me feel extremely nauseous for some reason, so I skipped to the end of the episode. I like how the author says, "for some reason," as if the bloody, scarred, child-murdering apple isn't a good enough reason to make him feel uncomfortable. From what I saw, the rest of the episode was him watching TV and reading the news, with random zoom-ins at the newspaper. Why, though? I'm guessing that they're predictions like episode 9, but after that episode, I'm not going to go back and read them. This author is dedicated enough to write a novel-length account of every Appy episode they have in their possession, but can't be bothered to go back and check those newspapers. Makes sense. There was a very brief scene where Appy began to stab a kid, but it quickly cuts to Appy watching a scene on his TV where the insides of a space shuttle catches on fire. Why the heck does this show keep showing scenes very reminiscent of future disasters? I'm assuming that this is referring to the space shuttle Columbia that burned up upon re-entry in 2003. This is starting to feel like it's just a little bit in poor taste. It's kind of reminding me of that terrible SpongeBob analog horror that used the creator of the show's actual death as a plot point in order to be spooky. I think one of the nice things about writing fiction is that you don't have to reference 9/11. In fact, it seems like it would be pretty easy to not use real-life tragedies for your horror story. Not saying that real stories can't be used effectively in horror media, but they are typically handled with a lot more class than this, especially because it doesn't seem to add much to the story. I'm kind of wishing that Appy just focused on the missing and dead kids, similar to what 1999 does with the same formatting. I don't think they do it well, but it might be marginally better. Once I had got to the end of the episode, Appy was holding a knife covered with blood. The camera began to pan down to a table, which had a hand with cut marks laying on it. What was probably the most unusual thing about this episode happened after this scene. After a few seconds of the credits play, it very suddenly cut to a black screen with text that said, "If you get these DVDs, I copied the show over to one of them from whatever master tapes I could find. I wanted to preserve the show so that the last few episodes weren't lost forever." Now you might be wondering one thing. How did Nickelodeon air all of those episodes? I don't know, they just did. That's what. If you want to know more about the show, including its fate, see me, KC. After reading so many of these creepypastas, I've come to the conclusion that "now you might be wondering" has no place in a horror story. It always sounds cheesy. I'm pretty sure that Jeff the Killer used that exact same line. It always feels like the story suddenly turns into an episode of Bill Nye the Science Guy. There has to be a Bill Nye creepypasta, right? Someone has to have written a story where Bill Nye teaches kids how to synthesize anthrax or something. Thankfully, I had a good grasp on whom the KC most likely was. Kevin Seward Christensen, a friend of mine. Incorrect usage of the word whom there, but I appreciate the effort. I barely know when to properly use it myself. It wouldn't be out of the question. When I first met him, he did mention something about working with Nickelodeon until the end of the millennium. Wanting to learn more about the show's fate, I went over to his house. I'm going to have to start saying that I was born at the end of the millennium instead of just saying that I was born in 99. That sounds way cooler to me. What happened when I got there was, to put it bluntly, Odd. Odd is such a funny descriptor to use after saying you'll put it bluntly. I feel like that's a very tame word, all things considered. When I got to his house and rang the doorbell, nobody responded. The door wasn't locked, so I decided to come in the house and see what was going on. I heard a middle-aged woman crying upstairs, so I ran across the living room and up the stairs to see what was going on. Kevin's wife was in their bedroom, crying at a framed portrait of them together. I asked her what had happened to Kevin, and she replied with a very odd answer. The narrator being able to tell that she was a middle-aged woman from her cry alone is pretty impressive. Also, pro tip, if you walk into someone's house without being invited in and hear crying, you should probably just leave them alone. Last night, someone or something took him away in his sleep. The police are trying to look for him, but they've come up with nothing, as usual. It's going to be revealed later that our narrator is a police detective, so this totally feels like a backhanded remark at him from this guy's wife. They've questioned me and searched her house for any evidence, but there's none, except for this scrap of paper. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I unfolded it, and it revealed itself to be a low-quality photograph of the scarred Happy Appy during the natural scene. While I was at her house, I asked her how those episodes had managed to get aired on Noggin. Imagine your husband is kidnapped during the middle of the night, and then, while you're crying to yourself, his weird friend barges in and asks you how they got Happy Appy to air on Noggin. This man had drugged the producers. He was going to... She had only managed to say that much before bursting into tears. I could only think that whoever that man was had kidnapped Kevin on the 26th. After comforting her, I left the Christensen household and walked off. Once I started to get near my house, I was startled by the noise of a gunshot nearby. I instantly ran to my house, fearing that whoever kidnapped Kevin and killed his wife was trying to chase after me. Before I closed the door, I took one last glimpse at the bushes on the other side of the street, and one of them was a mutilated arm with an unknown figure standing behind it. That's where your daily log ends? You found an unknown figure and a mutilated arm and you figured you'd just log off for the day and get back to it later? This dude spends lots of time painstakingly describing each episode of Happy Appy, so he could have given us a little more context and detail there. I can only assume that this will be promptly addressed in the next entry, so let's move on to that. It seems like the story is really picking up some steam now. March 3rd, 2011. Hey, I wanted to know if anyone has any recordings of a Happy Appy episode. If you do, please send me an email containing video of it. You might wonder why I'm asking this. Well, I found my disc in pieces on my desk, and no, I did not save the videos to my laptop. Oddly, the way it was broken was almost like a claw had slashed the disc into thirds. The paper with Happy Appy on it was nearby, with writing that said, "No more evidence now, huh?" I wondered who was angry enough to destroy my disc. So we're just not going to address the mutilated arm? That's just not important to the story for now? It seems like that should be a more pressing matter. Also, insane that you would be scarred for life by watching Happy Appy, find out your friend has been kidnapped because of it, come home to find someone entered your house and destroyed the disc, and then request more episodes of it by email. Dude, just stop researching this show. Pick another Lost Media episode to search after. I assume you're a Sonic the Hedgehog fan, much like everyone else, so do something like that. March 4th, 2011. The badge finally came in the mail today. It came in a small box that had, interestingly enough, a timestamp from 2000. I could only guess that Nickelodeon still had some left over from when the show was still popular. When I opened the box and dumped out the contents, the badge came rolling out, with a letter attached to it. The badge was made of plastic, had a silver bronze color, and depicted Happy Appy with a smile. On the back, Happy Appy Helper Badge was imprinted in stereotypical army font. The letter had the following written on it. "To my friend, you have helped us help the Japanese. Of course, let me introduce myself. Unarguably, you have heard of me on Noggin. Can't understand what I'm saying? Well, I'll give you the answer. Happy Appy, Appy App, Appy App, Appy App, Happy Appy, Appy App, he helps kids all day." Now, where do I begin with this gift? Today, I have given you a nice badge, right from the old playground. How did I get these, you ask? Running across the playground, I tripped on a rock. I fell down, but I noticed the ground was uneven. Undoubtedly, something was buried. So I dug the ground and found a crate filled with these badges. Now it's time to be off. Watch Noggin at 8:30 a.m. CST to see my new adventures. Love, Happy Appy. I checked the back for anything interesting. What I found instead were these 2 lines of gibberish. I don't even know what they are. I gave a cursory look over these codes to see if I could figure anything out, but nothing is coming to me. Knowing this story, they are probably related to a real-life tragedy. I was going to make a joke referring to a specific real-life tragedy, but then I realized that it would be in poor taste. It's a shame the author never made it to that line of reasoning themselves. March 5th, 2011. Today, I got an email from a man who claimed to be a user on WikiLeaks. He had heard about my research on Happy Appy, so he tried to find any documents related to the show. He did find one, which told employees at Nickelodeon to never air certain TV shows or movies. After browsing through a massive description of Crybaby Lane and other shows, I found this block of text in the middle of the document. Crybaby Lane is such a throwback. When I was in middle school, I remember wanting to watch some scary movies, but I wasn't allowed to watch anything that was like actually scary. And beyond that, I was just too much of a scaredy cat to actually want to watch anything like that. But I remember seeing Don't Look Under the Bed on the Disney Channel and growing obsessed with finding more of these like Nick or Disney scary movies. Crybaby Lane is one of the more infamous ones because the plot has to do with a farmer whose wife gives birth to conjoined twins, one good and one evil, who are locked in their room and then die. It was seen as a little too dark for children to handle, so it was pretty much locked away and never rebroadcast. I always had a fascination with stuff like that. I actually rewatched Don't Look Under the Bed with my wife a few months back and started writing a script for a video, but that was kind of before my channel blew up. So if you'd be interested in hearing me talk about that weird Disney Channel original horror movie, then let me know. It might be a fun change of pace for the channel. One show, originally named Happy Appy, was canceled due to excessive violence and gore. The show depicted a personified apple named Happy Appy that taught kids how to handle certain injuries and, on an episode called Hurt Happy, teamwork. On their last and only 8th episode, only an hour had passed when Noggin began to remove all traces of the show. That was written really awkwardly and didn't make a ton of sense. On their last and only 8th episode should probably be something like, on only the 8th episode, the show was canceled. That's what they're trying to say, I think. Children who had watched the show's final aired episode allegedly obtained symptoms of nausea and sleep deprivation. A 2003 report said the episode seemed to depict explicit imagery of the September 11th terrorist attacks, even though the episode aired in 1999. I'm getting a lot more dubious about this show. Wait, so other people saw this show and saw the references to future events? Why wasn't this talked about more? I figured this was like something unique to our narrator. Imagine having a show that you know could predict the future in 2003 and then just not using that power to try to stop some of the disasters that you were warned about. This whole creepypasta is like if Minority Report and Blue's Clues had a baby, which is honestly an insane premise that could go hard, but they're completely fumbling it here. June 1st, 2011. First off, yes, I know that Happy Appy might have predicted that recent earthquake and tsunami, so stop sending me emails about it. To put it short, I'm back. Since my job involves working as a detective in the police department, I had to take a hiatus from this blog so I could get paid. This is the line where I figured this must actually be a joke. The comedic genius of our narrator fumbling around and not digging into things that really need to be investigated more, only to reveal that he is then a police officer, is just too funny. It's also kind of funny that he implies that writing the Happy Appy blog is a grueling enough task so as to be a full-time job. He can't just like do this after work. During this period, there were some trials involving the murder of Kevin Christensen. However, they came to an abrupt halt when the arm they found disappeared one day. I bet that shadow man stole the arm. Okay, so Kevin has been murdered, and also the arm that our narrator found but didn't investigate was presumably recovered by police, but then stolen again by the Shadow Man. It seems like Urban Spook may have learned some of his writing skills at the Happy Appy School of Writing. Confusing, convoluted timelines all around here. Anyway, I was looking up Happy Appy on YouTube today when I found a video that said Kevin Christensen interview, audio only, so I watched it. Here's a transcript. You gotta love how elusive any information about this series seems to be, but then just looking up Happy Appy on YouTube comes up with an interview about it right away. Interviewer: are you Kevin Christensen? Kevin Christensen: yes. Interviewer: so you're the one who worked on Happy Appy's clay model? Kevin Christensen: yes. Interviewer: how did you get the job for Happy Appy? Kevin Christensen: I just graduated from an art college in late 1998. I heard about Nickelodeon Studios who were making cartoons, so I sent a resume, and a few weeks later, I got the job, and I was happy, well, until it hit the fan. Interviewer: what happened on the day you made the Happy Appy model? Kevin Christensen: okay, so basically we had to design a cute looking puppet for the show. We started with the rusty stick that was lying around on the floor of the studio, made an apple out of clay, and stuck it on the stick. We added baby blue eyes, as well as pupils so he would look cuter and less frightening for children, huge green lips, and clay arms. Finally, we added a stem and a leaf. We thought it was perfect for the show. Interviewer: who voiced Happy Appy? Kevin Christensen: I don't remember his name, but I do remember who he was from. It was a show called Fright House Screamers, where 4 teenagers would spend the night at haunted places. Interviewer: what happened to Fright House Screamers? Kevin Christensen: when they were filming the 4th episode, one of the teenagers was found dead in the place they were doing. Besides, the show sucked. Interviewer: was the voice of Happy Appy the teenager who got killed? Kevin Christensen: I'm pretty sure not. Interviewer: back to Happy Appy. Why aren't there any surviving copies of Happy Appy? Kevin Christensen: that's a good point. See, Nickelodeon owns these tapes somewhere, but they're not going to release them for a long, long time. There have been bootlegs, of course, but none show the episodes after episode 11, which is weird. Interviewer: how many episodes of Happy Appy were there going to be? Kevin Christensen: 2 full 26 episode seasons. They only showed 8 or 10 of the first season before Happy was cancelled. However, my friend Jim says there's actually 2 seasons, but he was very drunk when he said that. Besides, I don't trust him at all. Interviewer: do you know any of the other crew who worked on Happy Appy? Kevin Christensen: I only know Jim. What's interesting about this entire story is that it actually follows a lot of the conventional horror structure that you'd find in a lost media story. It's just got some jank in it. I was honestly expecting there to be a lot more grammatical and structural issues and like nonsensical story beats, but the author clearly knows how to structure a story and has some talent as a writer. I'm curious to see if they can keep this momentum going throughout the entire story because, believe it or not, we're only like 5% of the way through this thing. When choosing a creepypasta for these videos, I typically just ask for suggestions from the viewers, and I got so many people suggesting Happy Appy that I just went for it. If I had known how insanely long this story was going to be, I probably would have picked something else, but now I feel like I have to examine this entire story. Like I said, it'll be over multiple videos, but I am legitimately curious to see just how insane this story gets given its insane length. Moving on. June 6th, 2011. I've had some feverish nightmares of Happy Appy since I saw those last episodes. The dreams range from Happy doing his death smile for hours to him brutally murdering a kid off camera. Not only that, but I've become paranoid of apples. If I see one in my house, I eat it as quick as I can or throw it away. I've seen the mysterious figure more, whether he's sitting on the side of a hill or standing near some trees. It never seems to leave me alone. However, I can at least describe his appearance. Okay, you can't fool me anymore. This story has to be a joke. There is no way someone writes, "I have become paranoid of apples," with any sort of sincerity. I typically try to avoid stories that are written to be intentionally bad, but the sheer commitment to the bit here is such that I feel like I have to commit to the bit of analyzing this whole thing. So that's what I'm going to do. This is probably a terrible idea. First off, he can't be made of shadow because he has some sort of face with a mouth. However, his mouth is locked to one expression, which happens to be Happy's death smile. I'm going to sound weird for this, but I wonder if he's happy. No, he can't be. There's a fine difference between this figure and Happy Appy, a child-sized apple, as opposed to an adult-sized apple. I'm surprised he hasn't said that Happy Appy is the size of an average human mother. Oh well, here's more about the stalker's body. He looks like he's slightly taller than me. For reference, I'm around 1.87 meters, and looks about midweight for his height. There's an unbelievably tragic line in there if you don't have the context of this story. I'm going to sound weird for this, but I wonder if he's happy. No, he can't be. Someone's gotta put that in their emo song. If you can't tell by the albums behind me, I'm a lover of emo music. Happy Appy would actually be a sick song title or band name for an emo band. If he keeps appearing, I'm going to have to board up my house. I'm not sure what his problem is, but if he doesn't stop, I'm going to call the cops the next time I see him. I've mentioned this before, but I typically write my scripts over multiple days. I try to get them done in like 1 or 2 days, but sometimes they take longer. So what I'm reading right now is the second day of my script, and between the first and second day, I've learned something that is key to understanding Happy Appy. It's a troll pasta. For what I can tell, it was written as a joke. It's supposed to be intentionally bad. This has reshaped my view of this entire story, and I'm not sure what to do with that information. I do have to say that writing a troll pasta of this magnitude and length is legitimately impressive. I like to think I'm pretty good at committing to the bit, but this is on another level. But that does pose the question of how I can even analyze this now that I know that it's satire. My thought is that my analysis will be a bit more casual going forward. Just know that I know this is a satire now, but that doesn't mean I'll stop pointing out the insanity of the story. June 11th, 2011. Great, just frickin' great. How the hell do I put this in short? Right now I'm at the library, which could very well be the only place in Aberdeen that has a free-to-use computer. It's been 5 full days since I last encountered the figure, and that bastard has some sort of problem because he burnt my house down. Oh yeah, he burnt the entire thing down for no reason whatsoever. I did manage to save some things from my house, like my laptop and a Happy Appy badge and letter. I've talked before about how casual the author is with the crazy things happening around them, so I like that there was an attempt here to show how mad they are that their house has been burned down. But the way that it's written makes it seem like it's almost trying too hard. In reality, if your house was burned to the ground, you probably wouldn't be making these posts. It also reads like a commentary on these blog-style stories that have long gaps between posts. I just covered the Diania house, and that was pretty common in that story. Typically, the problem is the exact opposite. You'll have someone take a 3-month gap in updating their blog only to say their mom got a slight cold so they couldn't update. It's funny that the narrator's dedication to this blog is such that he views 5 days as an unreasonably long gap in between posts, despite the fact that his house burned down. Even then, I feel like I've released some of this curse from watching those episodes with Happy Appy, and the library is my only hope spot. Thanks to that figure, I'm not even going to research more on the show anymore. After I destroy the badge and letter, I'm going to close down this blog, or better yet, I should kill that effer for what he did. I don't give a damn if I break the law and get sent to jail. Whoever the figure is has to pay for what he has done to me. I like to think that he's not angry at the Shadow Man for burning his house down. He's pissed that he won't be able to research Happy Appy in peace anymore. Also, I don't swear a ton on my videos, but just know that this post has been littered with what sounds like a 6th grader's attempt at cussing. Again, it fits the early creepypasta vibe very well. However, I'm not sure if the figure burned down my house. I didn't see his figure near my house, so it could have just been a chimney or electrical fire. So you know what? Forget what I said about closing down the blog and killing the figure. I'm going to treat the fire like it was natural and keep researching this show. Don't expect me to act nicely in the following months, though. It's not often that we are treated to an exact front row view of the inner machinations of our main character, so seeing his mental state flip on a dime like that was a real roller coaster ride. June 28th, 2011. I finally got somewhere to live in. To be more precise, I bought a mobile home in the nearby trailer park a few days ago. Since I'm not the richest man in my neighborhood, this will definitely do for now until I get enough money to buy a proper house. This is how you know that story really is from over a decade ago. That mobile home in the trailer park would probably cost you $300 grand plus a $400 monthly HOA fee these days. On Happy Appy, however, one of my friends, Jim Forrester, actually remembered Happy Appy and is most likely the one mentioned in Kevin's interview. He said that there were more episodes I didn't have on the DVD. It turns out that the most violent episodes were actually at the end of the season. The entire first season was supposed to have 25 episodes, plus a TV movie. No one mentioned it because Jim and Nickelodeon had the only known high-quality tapes until I found the DVD. It's also worth mentioning that the series slowly got more violent as the series progressed. Jim sent me a disc with fragments of Happy Appy episodes. Here are the contents of the disc. I like how we aren't really given any sort of explanation for why the episodes got more violent. We don't know if it was like paranormal or just some edgy animators. The first clip starts out with a close-up of a school bell ringing. It cuts to Happy Appy standing next to a kid sitting at a desk. The kid is trying to answer a math problem, but gives up and says, "I don't know how to do my homework." Soon the teacher says, "Class is dismissed." The kid becomes ashamed that he didn't know how to do his homework. But Happy says, "That's all right, I'll sing you the math song and you will understand." After the kid gasps, Happy sings a song about math. It was distorted in both audio and video, but I could thankfully make out the lyrics. "I'm going to show you how to do your homework. 7 plus 4 is 11, and 9 minus 2 is 7. Math's not a chore because 15 minus 11 equals 4. 6 plus 2 is 8, and you're doing great. Now here's the last 3, and you're on a spree. 66 minus 39 is 27, and negative 5 plus 16 is 11. 2 minus 1, and now your homework is done." After that, the kid said, "Wow, thanks Happy Appy." I find it odd that the kids were doing math that was more suitable for older elementary students. I find that odd as well, narrator. Although I do appreciate the fact they didn't use the classic creepypasta phrase, "The most disturbing part was that." The next fragment was one of the violent episodes. Even though the clips looked like they were separate from different episodes, they actually seemed to be in order. It started with 3 kids saying that their families were gone. They proceeded to cry so loudly that it was almost painful to see. Happy Appy and 2 other kids enter the shot and tried to calm them down. Eventually, they managed to calm down the 3 kids, and all 5 of them leave. However, Happy had this weird, perverted, and greedy expression. He tells the kids to come with him, and they follow him into an abandoned office building. 2 minutes later, he leaves the building, dragging several money bags with him. The kids were screaming for help again. I can't tell what the implication here is. Is he trying to say that Happy Appy sold those kids? Or is he just doing some innocuous transaction in the office building? We'll never know. It didn't end there. There was one fragment of a somewhat violent episode. Happy was putting a bandage on a kid's arm. Oddly enough, he was wearing a long coat in this episode, and in the far corner of his pocket, a needle with green fluids is visible. Happy gave the kid a shot with the needle, which knocked the kid out. He dragged the kid into his van, and a chainsaw was heard. The DVD stopped after that. This story is doing the Jeff the Killer thing, where it gets its tenses all mixed up and it sounds confusing. He was wearing a long coat, and needle with green fluids is visible. That's an issue that crops up in a lot of amateur writing, so be on the lookout for that. Also, Happy Appy just killed another kid in that scene, but that's pretty standard at this point. I do love that Happy Appy seems to be genuinely helpful in between his bouts of murdering kids. He's helping kids with math and raising money for charitable causes. Unless, no. You don't think, is Happy Appy committing charity fraud? Is that why he had the big bags of money? The story is corrupting me. I'm starting to think like Happy Appy himself. I'm losing any remnant of who I once was to that evil death smile of Happy Appy, whose full name I assume is Happle Apple. Oh, you want to know more about that encounter with the figure? First, it turns out he was at the library, so I got out of there. However, about Kleiner though, what I thought was Harold was actually someone else that looked like him. Secondly, I gave him a nickname. It's Forensic, which is better than calling him the Figure. I didn't come up with a name though. I found a scrap of paper on my desk that said Forensic. Obviously, since I have to call the Figure something, I will call him Forensic from now on. When I saw him 17 days ago, he seemed to have fingers with claws. A lot of times in creepypastas that are about creepy lost media, the story will be structured as having accounts of the media interspersed with the narrator's personal life and struggles. And typically the personal stuff with the narrator is far less interesting than the spooky media, so the reader can get impatient wading through the personal drama. I have to give credit to Happy Appy for having two concurrent plot lines that are both intensely uninteresting. It's quite remarkable. I don't mean like he had retractable claws in his fingers. His fingers looked like they were very sharp. I also got a good look at how he ran. He seemed to be hunchbacked, which means he would be taller when he would be standing up straight. I say about 6'9", although you could speculate that since I don't have a picture of him. Yet. July 14th, 2011. Jim Forrester has called me with another development. Treston Ye, the man who voiced Happy Appy and a star on Fright House Screamers, was killed today. Wasn't the guy that voiced Happy Appy killed earlier in the story during the production of Happy Appy? Maybe I'm just losing my mind at this point. I can't keep track of all these things, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened back then, and correct me if I'm wrong. His body had 3 long and deep cut marks on his chest, with one of them slashing open his heart. Even though the police marked it as a murder by a bladed weapon, I think forensic killed Treston. It just seems like a weird coincidence that my CD of the Happy Appy episodes was clawed in the same way that Treston Ye has. Jim, however, said in response that they would be very sharp claws since the markings managed to put a deep cut on one of his ribs. I might need to research Fright House Screamers after I'm done with Happy Appy. It sounds quite interesting. The balls on our narrator to be going through this absolute nightmare of being stalked by forensic, who is on the prowl killing people, and our narrator is already thinking about what he'll be researching next. Wait a minute. Maybe forensic is the strange entity that we read about in the Ted the Caver sequel. I can feel my third eye opening. Maybe the story is a crossover. July 15th, 2011. Today, Jim Forrester gave me a DVD with 3 new episodes. According to Jim, the first one is the episode with the green fluids needle, the second being the full version of Happy Goes to School, and the last one might be the second part of the Happy Appy TV movie. I would be able to describe the episodes if it wasn't for the extensive cleaning the disc needs. Throwback to when I was growing up and me and my brothers would absolutely trash our GameCube and Wii discs. I remember some games would just stop working because they were so badly scratched on the back. I also remember specifically that Super Mario Sunshine went missing for a while, and then one day I was reading Because of Winn-Dixie on the toilet, and the disc fell out of it. That's not a joke, that's just what life was like for me growing up. July 17th, 2011. After all this time, I cleaned the disc enough to be watchable. The only problem is that it sometimes freezes when a video gets played. Here are the contents. After all this time, referring to a 2-day period is funny to me. That's how you know this was written by a child. The first episode started out with the scene with the green fluids needle. After Happy kills the kid, he drives to a crashed plane, where the scene with the money bags happened. The scene with the money bags happened at an abandoned office building, didn't it? The story's trying to gaslight me and I think it's working. It cuts to the playground, where Happy was playing with some kids. It went along like normal until his skin peeled off, revealing a rotten apple core. It was like an orange peeler was being used on him. The skin landed on a boy's head, covering his face like a blanket. The weird part about this scene was that the kids had no reaction to Happy's skin being peeled, almost like it never even happened. After a minute of seeing the boy with Happy's skin on his head, the episode ends. Some really powerful symbolism here. Happy Appy shed his skin, his facade, to reveal to the audience that he has been rotten to the core this entire time. The children are unbothered by this, having become devout disciples of Apple and his evil ways. Some nice subtle visual storytelling here. I suppose you could also figure out that Happy Appy is rotten to the core from watching the graphic child murders that he commits. Either way works fine. The second episode was, as Jim said, the full version of Happy Goes to School. It begins with the math scene and song happens, but in a vastly improved quality. After that, Happy goes into a science class where a kid is messing around with a Bunsen burner. Eventually, the kid gets his finger burned by accident. Happy informs, never play with a Bunsen burner without adult supervision. If you don't, you might get hurt like Eddie here. After a short monologue, Happy puts an ice pack on Eddie's burn, and he thanks Happy. Our narrator was concerned that the young elementary students were doing math that was slightly too advanced for them, but he doesn't bat an eye at the Bunsen burners. I don't think I used a Bunsen burner until high school biochemistry, because they were not about to give a bunch of 10-year-olds access to fire at my elementary school. A few seconds after Happy puts the ice pack over the kid's burn, he hears an argument coming from the hallway. It cuts to a bully mocking a young kid, telling him that his art project is the dumbest thing ever. Because of this, the younger kid starts crying. After some more mocking, the bully runs off laughing. Right as he leaves, Happy comes over and tells the kid to never give up at what he likes doing. The kid instantly cheers up and runs into a classroom, presumably to tell a teacher about the bully. This whole bullying sequence isn't brought up again, at least as far as I can tell, so I like to think it's just a self-insert moment from the author. He's probably getting bullied because instead of playing on coolmathgames.com in the computer lab like all the cool kids, he's hard at work on his Bible-length lost media story. Finally, I saw the second part of the Happy Appy movie. It started out with Happy Appy driving his van on the road leading to the playground. It shows a kid playing with rocks on the side of the road. By accident, he throws a large rock on the road, which lands directly in the path of Happy's van. Happy thinks it's an animal and tries to swerve out of the way, but the van goes off the road and crashes into a grassy ditch. For this scene, footage of a real car crash was used for whatever reason. After this scene, the van starts to catch on fire, and some kids, including the one who threw the giant rock, run over to the burning wreckage. The music for this scene isn't the happy-go-lucky music that plays throughout the show, but sound clips of a reversed Revolution 9 with Happy screaming, "Get me out!" Happy Appy swerving into a ditch, his Ford Windstar catching on fire, and then him screaming for help has to be the funniest thing I've read so far. It's just so funny to see our horror antagonist child murderer be completely helpless and not able to play it cool at all. It's weirdly realistic. And also, who animated this? After a kid says, "There, his hat," it cuts to Happy's bloody stem, which had a mouth with bloody teeth on it. The stem proceeded to scream, which was just one of the screams that Mike Schenk did in an American movie. Another kid says, his body. Happy's body was badly burnt and scratched up, with blood coming out from the larger, deeper cuts. His left eyeball was dangling out of the socket, while all of his upper teeth were either chipped or broken. Where Happy's left arm and stump were, there was pure white bone, with blood slowly leaking from the exposed wounds. Looks like we can check unnecessary hyperrealistic violence off our creepypasta bingo card. How does Happy Appy peel his skin off with no incident, but then when he's in a car crash suddenly he has human-like anatomy? I think I'm just thinking way too much about this. Let's keep going. Happy tried to crawl to the burning wreck with his right arm, but it was only a minute until he collapsed and died, while screaming to weird sci-fi noises. They could have fulfilled another creepypasta cliche by putting in a very specific reference for those weird sci-fi noises like Sonic.exe did. Missed opportunity. The next scene just showed the road, lacking any children whatsoever, with the remains of Happy in the van in plain sight. It cuts to a funeral, where kids were crying over Happy's dead body, while one kid said, "Why, Happy, why?" and another tried to wake up Happy by shaking his corpse. Why? Dude, he swerved out of the way of a rock that was thrown into the street and died in a car crash. It's not like he had much say in the matter. After the funeral scene, it showed Happy's body, with blood on his broken teeth. The shot fades to a scene taking place 10 years later, where a kid was talking to her mother. The mother replied to the girl, but her speech was in reverse. After re-reversing it, the speech turned out to be, "Don't worry, my daughter. Happy Appy is coming to take you away. Ha, ha." The father comes in and talks about how bad Happy was, but in a sarcastic tone. After the mother asks why he randomly brought Happy Appy up, the father brings out a knife and stabs the mother in the head. The girl screams, runs to the mother's side, and starts crying. The father's skin peels off, like the scene with Happy and the orange peeler, revealing Happy with his injuries from the car crash. Happy proceeds to kill the girl. This is incredible, no notes. The last shot before the credits was Happy Appy smiling over the bodies of the mother and kid, as well as the skin of the father. Shout out to the Clive Barker story, The Skins of the Fathers. I might have to read that after this video as a palate cleanser. May Barker give me the strength to go on. Side note, but I think Drew Gooden might be the best Barker on this app. Instead of the theme song playing over the credits, dark carnival music played, with clips of Revolution 9 and Napoleon XIV's "They're Coming to Take Me Away, ha ha." A narrator said, "His stomach was in two today. There were two and there is none now. He's there, he's getting next to his sister with all he knows, and finally, he ceased to work in the underworld." Guess what the narrator was talking over? He was talking over Happy Appy with a bloodied scalpel in one hand and an X-Acto knife in the other. I don't know what kind of drugs I need to be on to understand this story, but it clearly isn't Vyvanse because I have no idea what's going on. I'm losing my mind. It slowly panned down to the disguise Happy was under, like the magic trick episode, and stopped at the hand of the skin, which had cut marks on it. The episode ended. I think I'm going to have to call it here for this video. This is already getting long, and I have actually good stories that I want to talk about, and I refuse to let Happy Appy take my channel hostage. I will for sure be reading the rest of this at some point in the near future. It'll probably be one big video where I cover the rest of this and maybe not do as much of my own analysis. Like I said before, I have immense respect for the sheer commitment to the bit Writing a novel-length bad creepypasta for no reason other than just because is insane. Let me know if you guys would like to see me cover the rest of this. This video ended up being a little more disorganized because I truly didn't know how long this was going to be. If you like this video and want to see more like it, then remember to subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to reach 100,000 subs by the end of 2025. If you want to hear me cover other bad creepypastas, then I've got videos on Jeff the Killer, The Real Chuck E. Cheese, and a few others. I've also got videos on good creepypastas like Ted the Caver and the Diania House, so check those out as well. Watching my videos is like the best way to support the channel. But if you'd like to support me further, then consider becoming a channel member for just $3 a month. Channel members get early access to all my videos, access to exclusive video book reviews, access to my Discord, and access to my members only book club, link in the description. A massive thank you to all my gold tier members: Amanda Mapes, Lucas Fernando, Chris Lamb, Ezra, Silent Trails, Blue Radio Media, Tyler Lepper, Vix Corner, Mistroy16, Coco Boco, Cherry Shark, Moonsong Blog, Starlight Pink, Jackson Moore, Amanda Castillon, Lexi, a Cradling Author, B, The Official Gar, Wybab Flow, Hi, Sasso, Zappo Dappo, Semra, Laura Gonza, Classic Pats Games Plus, Miranda M, Hexmaniac Rafa, Hito Bryan, Ben Best, Marin Elizabeth, The Nexonym, Digital Fox, Issa, Uton, Sherbert, Emilio Nomura, Temple, Ellie, Jupiter Rainstorms, Junie, Maddie, Ellis Hale, Vesper, Jess, Miley Bop, Abigail Wagner, Sundry Productions, Canadine, Emma Gees, Red, Moss, Maya S, Site42, Rye Like Bread, Alicia, Chipsa, Out of the Fandom, Getty Hirsch, Maddie, FM, Basil, Robstar 3112, Freddie and Foxy, Blair Reverse, Liminal Lake, Floropause, Jojo, Yum the Epic, Spirit Hotline, Furbished GGDC, Catcher Elizabeth, Mayfield, Truby, Lich or Something, Jazz, Homie Gaming, Sue, Bundle of Sticks, Danny, Jesse Salo, Steel Cut Oaths, Veronica Heredia, Phantoms Forever, Ashley, BB, Archie, Felly, Tommy, Killer Ray, 257, and an otter in a trench coat. Goodness, that's a long list. Thank you all so much for your support. You can look forward to another horror literature video soon. I think that's what I'm going to be working on after this video. Thanks again to everyone for watching this, and I'll catch you in the next video. See ya.
Take me up again, let me see the stars. Is there life on Mars? 'Cause I've run out of luck here on Earth. I'm a wanderer. Another trip around the sun makes these memories flood, and I could wash it down with the atmosphere. You're cool blue and crystal clear. I'm an astronaut flying above, but can't fall in love. Floating alone, brave enough to see the cosmos, too scared to say hello. And I know one day I'll be gold,